You've heard the headline, 1927, a family of 4 vanished without a trace, leaving only an overturned dinner table and locked doors. A tragedy, yes. A mystery, absolutely. But here is the truth you haven't been told, the truth that has been intentionally scrubbed from every official record. That house is not haunted. It is a perfectly engineered, self-sustaining trap. And what it catches, it never lets go. We spent 4 months chasing a single, corrupted file, a file that proves the blood spilled a century ago was simply the opening act. We're going inside to find the final secret, the missing component of this property, a component that will prove that the thing in the Blackwood house is not a spirit in chains. It is an entity that is currently feeding. The popular account is neat, an isolated incident, a cold case closed by the state decades ago. The police chalked it up to a runaway cult, or maybe a psychotic break. The house was boarded up, labeled an eyesore, a source of local superstition. That is the story designed to keep the public calm. But we do not deal in calming stories. Our team gained access to the original civil engineering documents. Documents that were almost lost to a City Hall basement fire in the 1980s. What those documents show is a foundation that is structurally impossible for the recorded layout. And what we found embedded in the ledger notes, a single, handwritten annotation, was the phrase, unrecorded sublevel, access by permission of the architect only. The architect, of course, vanished with the family in 1927. Our mission tonight is singular, to locate that space, to expose the purpose of the Blackwood house, to understand why its victims, from the original family to the more recent, high-profile disappearance of investigative reporter Clara Davies in 2018, were all searching for the exact same truth. By the time we finish, you will know precisely what Clara found in her final moments, and why the terror of this house is just beginning. To understand the trap, you must understand the architect and his family. The official report states they were a typical, affluent family. But their existence was anything but. We found archived service letters indicating an obsession with noise mitigation. Every wall in that house was triple insulated, not for warmth, but for absolute, suffocating silence. The father, Mr. Alistair Finch, did not install electricity. He insisted on gas lamps and mirrors, hundreds of them, installed in every room. Why? We believe the isolation was intentional, but the mirrors suggest something else, a desire to constantly observe, or perhaps, a need to constantly confirm what was real. The most disturbing detail, however, relates to their children. There were 2 of them. Local records show both were pulled from school 3 years before the vanishing, purportedly for private tutoring. But the teacher's final notation, scrawled into the attendance ledger and underlined multiple times, reads only, "The children no longer answer when called. I hear only the mother's voice." It is here that the rational minds stop watching. They offer a neat explanation: collective psychosis, carbon monoxide poisoning from the gas lamps, a slow mental decay born of isolation. They cite the discovery of a hastily constructed brick furnace in the cellar, a red herring designed to appease the authorities. They claim the screams reported by a passing neighbor were nothing more than the wind shearing off the cliff face. And for a time, we agreed. It's the easiest answer. But the skeptic's perfect logic, the idea that the tragedy was entirely mundane, crumbles when you examine the evidence against it. We are referring to the date of those reported screams. They were recorded in 1916, a decade before the Finch family even broke ground on the property. So, if the screams weren't the Finch family, who was screaming from the empty hillside? We are now inside. The atmosphere is one of profound cold, a cold that has nothing to do with thermodynamics. We are drawn immediately to the original cellar, the location of the official discovery, the brick furnace. We believe this is the focus of the initial police investigation, and therefore, the perfect place for the architect to hide his deception. Our structural sonar confirms it. The north wall behind the furnace is hollow. This is where the police missed it. This is where the trail was meant to end. We breach the wall. The space is pitch black. Our thermal camera sweeps the opening and registers a temperature drop to nearly freezing. We have found a crawl space. This is the unrecorded sublevel. We are not alone. And this space is not a storage unit. It's a corridor. It was not the final secret. It was merely the way in. We are in the architect's concealed passage. It is not an escape route. It is a service tunnel. The walls here are not plaster, but bare, jagged stone, indicating this space was carved out of the earth long before the house was constructed. The air is so heavy it feels like a physical weight on the chest, and the temperature is unnaturally stable, a constant, dead 40 degrees. Our Geiger counter registers a low, ambient radiation signature, just enough to be concerning, but not enough to explain the dread. The only thing we hear is the sound of our own movement, and that unnerves us more than any phantom noise. It confirms the house's primary function: silence. Absolute silence is required for the trap to work. We follow the passage for what feels like 15 minutes, moving toward the coordinates of the architect's annotation. Then, the tunnel opens into a chamber. It's small, circular, and unlike the rough passage, its walls are carefully finished in smooth, black tile. It looks like a holding cell, but we realize it's worse. The chamber has drainage, and on the center of the floor, beneath a thick layer of dust, is a piece of evidence that is definitively not from 1927. It's a runner's jacket. The kind worn by Clara Davies, the investigative reporter who vanished in 2018 while researching the Blackwood house. The historical mystery is over. The threat is current. Embedded in the pocket, miraculously shielded by the jacket's thickness, is her satellite phone. It is cracked, the screen dead, but the memory card is intact. We immediately pull it, placing it in a shielded bag. We know this is her final testimony. And then, we notice the walls. The black tile is not a decoration. It is a series of interconnected, metallic panels, wired into the foundation. This room is a Faraday cage. It was designed to block all signal, all communication, from ever reaching the outside world. This isn't a holding cell for people. It's a termination point for evidence. We recovered the data. The majority of Clara Davies' work was encrypted and destroyed, but her phone's microphone had a failsafe. It auto-recorded the final 90 seconds before the battery was crushed. The breathing tells the story of her capture. The unidentified audio tells the story of the house. Our lead sound technician isolated the clicking rhythm. It is not random. It is a precise, mechanical oscillation. And when we cross-referenced that pattern with the construction notes we found on the architect's plans, we got the truth. That sound is a timer. The Blackwood house does not haunt constantly. It is a structure designed to activate only when someone is inside and has triggered a specific condition. In this case, the accessing of the Faraday cage. The clicking sound is the house priming itself for another feeding cycle. The family in 1927, Clara Davies in 2018, and us today, we all walked into a clockwork trap. But the revelation is not the timer itself. It is the final discovery on the corrupted file, a piece of code that was meant to be deleted. A piece of code that revealed where the architect actually went, and why the house is still waiting for him. That corrupted piece of code on Clara Davies's phone wasn't a log or a note. It was a fragment of a calendar app, constantly updating. And that calendar was tied to the house's timer. It marked the completion of the entity's feeding cycle. The key, however, was the owner's tag on the app. It wasn't Clara. It belonged to Alistair Finch, the architect. He didn't vanish in 1927. He simply initiated the timer and walked away. He wasn't a victim. He was the caretaker. The purpose of the house is now clear. It is a meticulously designed feeding apparatus that draws in people obsessed with its mystery. The ultimate fear is not the house itself, but the knowledge that Finch is still alive and actively monitoring the timer. He returns to reset the cycle. We have just broken the cycle by taking the evidence. We have initiated the final phase of the house's defense. The sigh you just heard wasn't a ghost. It was the structure itself registering a malfunction. We have been in the field for 48 hours, and we are no longer investigating. We are being hunted by the ultimate curator of this operation. We are out. We are running. The only thing that matters is putting distance between ourselves and the house's boundary. We have the data, we have the proof of Finch's betrayal, but we are too late to save. The structure is now completely dark, silent. And yet, the calendar app on Clara's phone just updated one final time. It shows the completion of the cycle. But the timer is not counting down to zero. It has begun a new countdown. A faster countdown. The house may be empty tonight, but it has not released us. We went in looking for a ghost story. We found a machine. The Blackwood house is the first phase of a larger, engineered horror. The architect, Alistair Finch, did not leave the house. He simply extended its reach. Now for the most chilling question. Where did Finch set the new meeting point for his machine? The final GPS ping on Clara Davies's phone, the one that broke the moment before the timer started, wasn't from the sub-level. It was from a seemingly ordinary, abandoned train station 10 miles away. We have two choices. We destroy the evidence and walk away, or we follow the architect's trail to the second location. The decision is yours. Tell us in the comments what we should do next, and if you believe the horror of the Blackwood house has truly begun to spread. We're reading every single theory. Subscribe and ring that notification bell, because our next video begins at that abandoned train station, right where Clara's final signal died. You won't want to miss the architect's ultimate plan.